Hello and welcome to another episode of AskBR. My name is Ronak and I'm one of the founders of Fully Filmy, a pop culture store that celebrates everything you love. And we're really excited to partner up with Film Companion South just for you. So, what you guys do is in every episode, you guys send in some amazing questions and BR answers them for you. But we thought we could take it a little notch higher. We wanted to reward you for your curiosity. So, here's the deal. In every episode of AskBR, the top 3 questions will win free t-shirts and goodies from fullyfilmy.in. So yeah, stay curious and cheers.
Thank you for that, Ronak, and to all viewers, hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode of AskBR, we are going to be talking about Mari Selvaraj's Karnan, which stars Dhanush. And stay tuned to our social media handles to know who the winners of Ronak's big prizes are. We'll begin with a question from Pradyumna Muralidharan. He asks, is showing certain castes as oppressive counterproductive to eradicating caste? I don't know that I see that something happening on film is going to necessarily change what is actually happening in reality. I mean, maybe because this film is set in the past, it doesn't mean that such things are not happening right now. So the fact is that certain things, the very fact that you cannot even mention the name of certain castes in films today, and there are lobbies, theatre lobbies, distributor lobbies that actively act against the, certain films being made or certain things being depicted, shows that it's everywhere. And I don't know that trying to eradicate caste is the ultimate goal, but I don't know that not showing these films or not making these films is going to make people forget about the fact that these inequalities exist. So, no, I don't think so at all. Dharmeshba asks, what's your opinion on the character arc of Karnan? Is Karnan's sudden eruption of anger at that point in life justified? Because the bus stop, oppression, dignity all seemed like a problem for years. Why Karnan and why then time? Because, at the end of the day, you're also making not exactly a masala movie, but a movie with a broad commercial arc, right? So what you're doing is taking all these social points and putting them into the narrative template of a broad arc. So the hero's journey is definitely a very well established narrative template, a masala template, if you will, and it's kind of worked over the years. So to say that a guy who initially was a little bit laid back and he's sleeping and he's not doing any work to becoming, aware of all this and rising, well, maybe not becoming aware of all this, being kind of indifferent to all this and then kind of rising is very much part of an arc. So I would say his anger is justified because, it's like he's okay at first, but then first the girl is harassed at the bus stop, and then the bus conductor incident happens, and then something else happens, the kabaddi match unfairness happens. So the director is showing a progression of events that all stem from this problem. So the interval burst, so to speak, is very much justified, and from then on he's a transformed Karnan, and the arc is very much justified in my opinion. Now let me tell you one thing. See, what you're asking is, in real life, people would have seen all these things for so many years. So would somebody not already have that anger? In a way, you're asking that question. But the point is that in a movie, you have to start the problem afresh. You cannot, set yes, this has been happening for years. But for the character, it should be something that feeds him at that point, that can take him to an interval point, to the end point. So in the film, maybe the others around him are whatever it is. It's not that they're unaware of it, but somehow there's a bit of artifice here, because you cannot show everybody in the village as being aware all the time. Otherwise, a personal transformation journey cannot happen. So you're taking certain cinematic liberties because you want to, show a very certain social phenomenon within a certain format that the audience is used to. So that's also the thing. Vattachelalar Vandamurugan asks, in Mari Selvaraj's first movie, the protagonist was just another nobody. Pari was the kind of person you walk beside on the road without really noticing. In Karnan, Dhanush's character is the savior of the people, an almost messiah-like figure. While Karnan is in no way a bad character of film, do you think it would have worked if Karnan was also a Pari-like character in this sense? Why do you think Mari Selvaraj made this jump from one extreme to another? I definitely felt that Pariyaran Perumal was was a more powerful movie in the sense that I felt an individual man's anger, his that thing that's erupting inside him like lava. That I was really able to feel that every second, that it was just building and building and building and building, and I was just shattered. But the problem is with a big star, you cannot make a movie like that because that is too. Pariyarum Perumal may have become a hit, but it became a hit in relation to its cost. Now, those financials have to be kept in mind. So, when you're making a movie with Dhanush who charges X crores, whatever, your financials immediately change, and you have to make a slightly broader film. You can't make something as niche and individual as a Pariyarum Perumal. You have to make him. I don't know if I exactly saw Karnan as a messiah, as in, or yeah, he's definitely a kind of savior. But what I loved about what Mari Selvaraj had done to this character is that he had infused so much tragedy that all of this is coming at a great cost, at a great personal cost. Because, one of my all-time, I love masala storytelling. I mean, it's we've all grown up with it, and one of the biggest things about the masala storytelling format is the interval format, right? You kind of break the movie in the middle to say, I'm starting this movie here, I'm introducing the events, the characters and all, and then I'm taking it and leaving it on this high so that you'll remember that high till you come back 15 minutes later, and then I'll continue with the rest of the story. What happens typically in an interval format? You're leaving a person on a dramatic high with an action scene or whatever it is, right? It's like a thing. Here, a person is fighting against a thing. Dhanush, I have never seen this in Masala cinema at all. Like a character is not fighting a bad guy, he's not fighting another villain, he's not fighting he's fighting a bus, a thing. He's expending all his anger on a thing that cannot retaliate but has caused so much oppression by just being that thing that nobody is bothered to change. That's a brilliant subversion of what we would typically call a masala movement, because you're not giving Dhanush an opponent in the form of a person, you're giving him an opponent in the form of a systemic oppressive thing. So I think there are many such touches that elevate this from, even though the arc is definitely the standard hero journey arc, there are so many such touches that elevate this from to more than just your typical masala savior movie where somebody just comes and says, I'm going to help all the farmers, or I'm going to help all the like the poor and downtrodden, or whatever it is, from industrialists and all those kinds of things. This is a very specific thing that Mari Selvaraj has fitted into this generic template. So, and I think by through these specifics, the template itself becomes more than just the generic template. We stop noticing the genericness of the template and the movie becomes more specific. Though I agree with you that Pariyarum Perumal is more powerful because hero is a normal guy. But then the fact that a hero can be shown this way is also wonderful. And I really liked another touch also, that almost like even at the end, when it's a celebratory moment, when he comes back to his village, somebody has to force Dhanush to dance. Somebody has to force him to be happy again. There are tears in his eyes when he dances, and it's kind of unclear whether those tears are there tears of joy, are there tears of sadness that so much loss has happened, and at this point in time, still we are still fighting for all these things. It's not your typical hero template movie at all. Srinistic asks, I love the way the entire movie was shot. The work was awesome. However, I feel Mari Selvaraj went a step ahead and overdid the symbolism in the movie, just like how GVM overdid the voiceover in ENPT. What is your opinion on this, and do you feel the same? Yes, I mentioned this in my review as well. I think the symbolism was a little overdone. But because the movie is so strong, you're able to it's not a deal breaker for me. So I felt that, yes, you're showing a few too many animals where, like in Pariyarum Perumal, Karupi begins the movie, dies, she embodies Pariyarum Perumal, the hero, and she resuscitates him at the end when he's lying to die because her spirit is kind of coming and saving him. So that's beautiful because, one character becomes a kind of a spirit animal, a kind of a representation of this being, because we're all creatures of God or whatever you want to call it, right? There's no difference between us and Karipi and an elephant or a donkey or whatever it is. But the point is that the fact that there are so many animals that are shown in so many obvious little cutaway shots, I think that bothered me a little. I didn't mind so much the fact that Dhanush was doing that half mask fight in the middle of animals. That's okay. That seems natural because, But there were a lot of cutaway shots, to pigs and to other things that kind of seemed like, he was going. There was a little too much of that symbolism happening, but there were other kinds of symbolism that I didn't, mind at all. So, like for example, the bus itself is this big symbol of the oppression, and the way he demolishes it, Karnan demolishes it at the interval. I don't think you could have done it in an asymbolic way. I don't think it could have worked as well if that symbolism had not been there. So there are some other ways in which the symbolism works beautifully. But yes, certain parts I did feel that the movie went overboard. Retro Ticket asks, Karnan is Mari Selvaraj's Kala. There are similarities in terms of the theme, set pieces, and Karnan seems to be more effective and complete. What would you attribute to? I would attribute it to the fact that I think Dhanush is even though he's a huge star and a fantastic actor, he's also a lesser wattage star than Rajinikanth. So that was really my problem with Kabali and Kala, is that Rajini is too big a star to kind of fit into this hero's journey narratives. And again, it's the commercials that are involved. Like if we had a system in India where stars would work for like 1/100th of their of their salary and tell the director, I will do it for the salary, and in compensation I will make my big Shankar movie or something like that. That would be brilliant, because then you don't have to make the movie to justify the economics. But when you bring a big star in, suddenly you're forced to generalize and do all sorts of things. And I also think Rajini's age was a problem in those films, in the sense that you are talking about Karnan feels like this action can happen, whereas with Kala, you kind of again, there's a lot of symbolism there, right? For example, at the end when he dies, and that the color is there, and then he's wandering among his people like a spirit, or almost like a spirit human as opposed to a spirit animal. But somehow those movies don't, kind of have that gut punch that a Karnan has. And I think it's also because Karnan is far more specific about what it wants to show. And because the oppression is coming from something like a bus, it feels different as well, as opposed to this very, casteist Hindu character, which is, again, maybe we didn't see this particular way, but again, it's like a human villain has been explored in so many ways that when Karnan shows an object villain that is like a villain that is an object, it just feels so different. But then again, that's what it is, right? See, Paranjit paves the way, Mari Selvaraj is able to take it forward, and then somebody else will come and take it forward. So this I'm talking about in social change, but also whether you talk technically, cinematically, cinematographically, musically, there is always somebody who kind of begins a journey, and then there are others who kind of take that journey forward. So I don't think Mari Selvaraj's films, as complete and as successful as they are now, would be possible without what Ranjit did like 10 years ago. It started 10 years ago, so that's also there. Without Wax asks, Pariyaram Perumal was applauded for its storytelling. For Karnan, it is more of as good as it can get with a big hero. Is there a need for directors like Selvaraj to dilute the screenplay to accommodate stars? See, it's very good for us to be idealistic and say that they've diluted the screenplay to kind of a thing. But I do not think the dilution affects Karnan to a great deal, because it still works as a very, very specific account of a very specific village and all these kinds of things. But also, would you want a Pariyaram Perumal which is speaking to the converted, or would you rather have a star with a bigger reach who can take this movie to a larger population and say the same things with the hope that maybe at least a few of them kind of register what is happening? So, because I remember the Film Companion South interview that Mari Selvaraj did, he got, I asked him what the reaction was after Pariyaram Perumal, and he said that a lot of the people that had oppressed him and his village, later maybe even his friends or other people, they all sent him either garlands or apology messages or whatever it is, because of, they saw this and they were able to see themselves in the movie or see Mari Selvaraj in the movie. Maybe these movies that go out and are so specific about what they are, because it's you cannot see Karnan and see it as anything else, right? It is a movie about casteism, injustice, social rot, oppression, everything. So you're talking about all these things to a much wider audience, and I personally have very mixed feelings about whether films can really change society. But clearly Mari Selvaraj has that belief that they can change society, and if he wants to do that, then he is going to try and get that message across to the largest possible audience. Because what is the point in just delivering a small film with, that will reach, a small audience, that most of that audience may have already bought the message that he's selling. So, I mean, this works that way as well. D. Ra D asks, at one point in the film, Karnan delivers an emotional message to his people. Immediately, everyone changes and joins him one by one. Don't you think this is the most obvious cliche in Tamil cinema? Recently, even in the Mandela climax, this happens. These things play a spoiled sport. What is your take on this? Yeah, the screenplay of Karnan is a bit wobbly, but what again I would say that for me, really what it was the big moments. They were so big and so powerful that these smaller things I found it very easy to brush aside. So is it necessary? Like, I also think what happens, I'm not sure, but I also think what happens with a lot of directors is that they overwrite, and then when they sit down and see what they've shot, they realize that they've got to crunch together a lot of stuff and maybe even delete some scenes. I have personally seen this happen with some directors. I don't know how Mari Selvaraj writes a screenplay, so I can't speak for him, but that could also be a reason, that because people tend to overwrite and then shoot everything and then sit and make calculations at the editing table because they want it at a particular length, and then certain beats are lost, certain things don't flow very organically. But again, in this movie, because the big moments work so magnificently, that's and there's a big moment at every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, and they all work. So I think, that wasn't a problem, a deal breaker for me at all. Shakara Rajan says, what do you think Mari Selvaraj tried to represent by providing an alternative Mahabharata universe in which Karnan kills Karnabiran? What exactly does that represent? It is just a metaphorical expression for there are two sides of the story. Okay, this is a question best left to Mari Selvaraj, and I don't even know if I should be answering this. I think, of course, Mari Selvaraj knows best, but my interpretation is that, right, Karna is on the side of the Kauravas, even though he's born a Pandava, he's on the side of the Kauravas in the Kurukshetra war, which is what the second half of Karnan is, a kind of like a downsized Kurukshetra war. And Krishna is on the side of the Pandava. So I think the idea is to look at it from the upper, like a broader angle, like the eagle at the beginning, and say it is about the Kauravas killing the Pandavas and winning their war, because seen from one point of view, they are also, there are so many stories, for instance, about how Duryodhana was actually a nice guy, and that because we're seeing the story from the Pandavas' point of view, he becomes the bad guy. So this is also a subversion of myth, because now there are two sides to every story, and Krishna is, we all know that he was a major manipulator, and how he brought across how many people in the Kurukshetra war itself he had killed in such unfair ways, because he knew their weaknesses, their weak spots, he knew what curses they'd been cursed with. So without his help, the Pandavas would not have won. So by killing the head of the Pandavas, the spiritual advisor of the Pandavas, maybe that's the message being sent, that that's this version of the Mahabharata, where this is finishing off that kind of domination of thing and subverting the myth. Another myth subversion I really liked was in the Mahabharata. What happens is, the fish moment happens with Arjuna when he's kind of in the Swayamvara of Draupadi. He kind of has to look at a fish and shoot and all that. Here, the big heroic fish moment is given to Karna. So I'm sure if if we all watch this film 2 or 3 more times, we'll dig a lot of these little things that are there throughout the movie. So I just feel that it's a kind of an inverted Mahabharata from the other side, seen from the other side. Because if you expand the Kurukshetra war to society, most movies are made from this point of view, from the dominant caste point of view. And finally, here's a movie that's taking one of our biggest epics and telling it from the other point of view. So I think that's what it is. Aditya Appu has problems with the screenplay, but he asks a question: what would Pariyarum Perumal have been if it had a Kalaipuli S Thanu to fund and Dhanush to act? See, I really think this is a problem, because we are not an audience that goes to see our heroes in ordinary roles. We will, as in those of you who are watching the show might be okay with it, because we are cinephiles primarily. So for us, the cinema comes first, the acting comes first, the product comes first. We don't care about the hero stardom and all that. And we know that Dhanush can do 100 other kind of heroic roles like VIP and all that, and that will also be its own universe. But the general audience, they will not accept a hero in certain ways. And I certainly think Dhanush, even if he had agreed to act in Pariyan Perumal, would be accepted as Pariyan, because the whole point of Pariyan is that he is one of us, one of, like one anonymous person of society, which is what I mean by one of us. It's like one anonymous guy. And I don't think you can put Dhanush up there and immediately say this is an anonymous guy, because even in VIP, where he's playing a kind of loser at first, he's still that there's a certain heroic quality that's always infused into him, whether it's in the way he sings his songs or whether it's the way he's like, with the Tamala character. He's never just one of us, he's always like us, but in a commercial mode, and that can never be brought on. So until we audiences learn to accept heroes in regular roles, this will never happen. And I think but that's also, I think, a good thing in a way, because it allows people like Kadir to showcase their talent in powerful films like this. Because I feel it's one of the unfair things that, it's very odd in a way, because most directors start off with small heroes because they are the only ones they can get for their films. And then once the directors prove that they can make a successful movie or a talked about movie, they move on to the bigger heroes because they get bigger budgets and their range, or they're able to deliver the message across to a larger audience. But then these small heroes still get left behind, and I don't know, that feels like such, I mean, it's its own kind of inequality that the next Mari Selvaraj will have to come along, or the next somebody will have to come along to give Kadir a good role. Until then, he will have to be kind of, doing other kinds of films. It just feels sad, but that's the nature of the business. So, what can you do? Prajapati asks, many privileged people are comparing Pariyan with Karnan and they find the violence irksome. Pariyan doesn't hit back even when he's brutalized and peed upon, because he intends to study further and he has already escaped the village in a sense. The protagonists in Karnan, Asura and VC don't have the same escape route, the state, and so they need to fight back in order to live. It's very condescending to say that the oppressed should only beg and plead. What do you think? I don't know who's saying this, because I try not to be on Twitter too much except to tweet and retweet the stuff that comes to me. But if somebody's saying this, then yeah, of course you're right, because see, Pariyan is also a very ordinary person's journey, because you're talking about an ordinary person's journey versus a hero's journey. Again, we go back to the template, the size of the star, the nature of the masala narrative. All these things play a part. So even when all these things are done to Pariyan, he kind of, that anger is boiling inside him always, but he's not a hero, so he immediately cannot execute karate steps and like do all these things. So you have to say that it's not that Mari Selvaraj is saying that you can't do all these things. It's the character. The character that Mari Selvaraj has written is that of an ordinary guy. Let's say like somebody comes up to you and slaps you on the street, right? You might feel that sting, that humiliation, but you may also be the kind of guy who doesn't immediately get into a fight. There will be some people who get into a fight, but Pariyan is not that kind of guy. So it's the character that comes first, and then the actions. And I think Pariyan was written perfectly in order, because I don't think that you can. Mari Selvaraj is kind of, in that particular film, he's talking about the normal guy and saying like that most powerful scene at the tea shop at the end, like till you are you and till you treat us like dogs, nothing is going to change. And that, I think, is what a normal guy story is. Whereas Karnan, Asuran are all not normal guy stories. They are hero stories. They are hero stories because the protagonist itself has a heroic arc, himself has a heroic arc, and it's also because the protagonist is a big hero. So you will fight back. You will have to fight back in both to justify the actor and his fans, that is on an extra textual level, and to justify the movie's narrative, which is about a guy who is on this hero's journey. So it's inevitable that this violence happens. Naveen asks, the supernatural factor, the masked girl throughout the film added an excitement to the screenplay. How important was that one? Karnan, and thoughts about that? Yeah, I thought that was wonderful, because like the girl dies, she becomes a goddess, and she kind of appears in the father's dream, and it's only then that Dhanush really realizes like he's surrounded by the spirits of many such people. That kind of, this is not there actually in the movie, but I kind of like got that feeling that it's not just that one girl, which is why at that particular point where the treasure is discovered, the horse also gets up on its rear legs and kind of neighs. It's like like almost like an uprising kind of thing. It's like it's getting up on its hind legs and doing that. Like he realizes that he's surrounded by, the spirits of many such people unjustly killed young people. So it's like, I think it's a very powerful symbol. And I think the most brilliant touch of all was that Mari Selvaraj did not go realistic, and he added that expressionistic element of keeping those mask like faces like a village god. So he kind of made them look not like little girls, but like actual goddesses on the bodies of little girls, so that you are always aware that you're looking at a village deity. I think that's not definitely not a naturalistic touch; it's an expressionistic touch, and I think that was brilliant throughout the movie. Deepan says, "Was the love track with Rajisha necessary? She doesn't even resolve the conflict between Karnan and her brother. Instead, he vents out by drinking and dancing. The first half would have been more pacey if they had jumped straight to the kabaddi scene followed by the interval." Again, I think they wrote a lot more of the character Draupadi, and then maybe they had to cut it back or something like that, because I really didn't see her as serving any purpose that could not have been served by any of the other characters that have already been established. For example, some of the things that she does, I think might have been, could have been even given to Lal, except of course the romantic scenes. But but I don't know, maybe the hero thing comes with the heroine thing. The hero movie comes with the need for a heroine, and I really wish she had gotten a better part to play and more things to do, actually. Even if the part was small in size, something to do. For example, I mean, in Pariyan Perumal, you have that character. She's really just an object in a way, in the sense that she's a representation of like purity and innocence of like what would a world without caste be like. Even that much is enough, because even though this woman doesn't actually do anything in the movie, the main conflict is between Pariyan and the person who plays his father-in-law, and that old guy and all these other things. That's where that she's not actually actively involved, other than periodically coming and saying, "Why are you doing this? You were so nice earlier. Why have you turned into this angry guy? What is this? Of course you're..." But the point is that she represents that thing, that pure state of what would an ideal world be like. Here, I didn't even feel Draupadi was doing, like, representing something like that important. So, yeah, so she felt kind of redundant, and I felt sad for that. Madan Ramesh says, if Dhanush had died at the end, would have been better resemblance to Mahabharata, while also painting Dhanush face in the wall instead of Lal. What is your opinion? But Dhanush should not die in the end. That's the whole point, because this is the Mahabharata seen from the other side. What if Karna had not died due to deceit, right? The way Karna dies in the Mahabharata is one of the great tragedies, because it's an act of cheating. Like, you're not supposed to kind of kill somebody who is who's not in his chariot and who's down there, but that's what happens. And this is a kind of almost like remedying that version of the Mahabharata and saying, look, I'm seeing this from another point of view, and in my version, Karna lives because he lives to inspire his people. He's done his duty by his people, and he lives to inspire his people. And I think that's a really nice ending. Anand Krishnan asks, in his first film, Mari Selvaraj talks about having an open discussion about issues. Coming to Karnan, the fight for your right message is slightly bloody. What is your take on this contrasting thing? Don't you find the violence problematic? No, violence we see in, I don't know, Sultan. Take Sultan, that came just the week before. Take Master. Every movie that we have with a big hero is filled with violence. So why, when you're taking it as just a movie, why is the violence such a thing? Because he's not randomly going and fighting people, right? It's only when things get to a boiling point is he going and actually hitting back. So it's like, would you not want a hero to act violently against a man who's drawing an obscene girl figure when a girl is seated in a bus stop? Would you not want that violence to happen? So I'm talking about cinematically, right now. I'm talking about from a screenplay point of view, a big hero point of view, a movie point of view. So that violence is absolutely necessary at certain points in a big hero movie. But even if you take this as the movie that Mari Selvaraj intends in his head, which is the movie about oppression and all that, I think the violence is necessary to show you, because his second half is the Kurukshetra war. War is violent. Right, he's saying let's fight, because these guys are not letting us be. We have to fight. So they arm themselves with rocks and stones and this and that, and they fight. Because they've tried speaking, it doesn't work. They've tried doing other things, that doesn't work. So what do they do? There's a guy who says, petition, what do you do when you're pushed? And not just pushed, but pushed in the most oppressed way, where they surround you, and they kind of come at you and beat you up and all that. What is the point? It's like, you have to fight back. And I think it's going to be interesting, because you, I think Mari Selvaraj with just two films has shown that you can talk about the problem, you can also fight against the problem. So I think both are a beautiful, like it's almost like a part one and part two of an ideology that he's unleashed. It's like my Pariyaran Perumal talks about the problem, and my Karnan fights against the problem. And I think, that's what's fascinating about both these films coming back to back. Varun Chandrasekhar asks, Karnan, though technically brilliant, felt inconsistent with its core conflict, especially with the Natarajan character, that is the Krishna character, which made the movie feel less impactful than it should have been. Did Mari Selvaraj prioritize symbolism and metaphors over a neat and coherent screenplay? I would say, yeah, I did feel that the screenplay was a little overstuffed and not really as clean as I would have liked it to be. But I think with the Karnak, with the one thing that I did feel that you felt was, I think that Kannabiran character might have been introduced earlier in the film, because I really want, he's a brilliant character, written written brilliantly, and he's brilliantly played by Natarajan. And so I thought, like, I would have loved to have a sense of him earlier on in the movie, because it's like he's not in the sense of a villain, but just as a presence out there, the Krishna of the story kind of being out there and doing certain things. I would have loved to have seen him in the earlier part of the movie, doing some stuff wherever he is. Dhanush28 asks, is Karnan really another Asuran, as people say, or is it much more than what Asuran was? It's not right to compare both the movies, but the themes being similar and the actor being the same made the audience find this as Asuran 2. Well, you could take it as Asuran 2, though Asuran is more of a personal conflict based on a bit of land, and that is also, a story of oppression. And this is also a story of oppression. But where I find Asuran different from Karnan is that Asuran is the story of a single family, a single, it's more focused. In the sense of its screenplay is very, very focused. It's very, very, like, the screenplay is really, really tight and sharp and kind of a thing. Even though I feel for a director of Vetrimaran stature, it was a pretty generic film, the screenplay is very, very, very sharp. It's like it starts at the right point, it ends at the right point, and it kind of gets there. Whereas with Karnan, you get a screenplay that is more about the community. The community is involved in everything. In the heroic act where he cuts the fish into half, the community is around him. In the war, the community is fighting with him. So it is never about the individual hero and his efforts to save himself or his family. It's always about the community. So I don't think it is necessarily Asuran Part 2. Also because in Asuran you had a human villain, whereas here the villain is objectified as a stationary bus, like your kind of a thing, because it stands for everything that is wrong with the society around that village. So I think because the hero's journey template in both kind of similar, that's what makes them look similar. But then that hero's journey template has been used in 1,000 films, and it's not about the template itself as what the directors choose to add to the template. And for example, there are wonderful. I would say that Karnan is actually in a way a more heroic movie than Asuran, because the wonderful things about that Asuran, where he has quelled the violence so much inside him that he doesn't want it to happen again. He knows that bloodlust runs through him. So even when Asuran's Dhanush knows that he is in the right, he is willing to go and fall at the feet of all the people in the village, because he knows that I just want to prevent a war. Even though I'm boiling inside, I would rather drink and quench my sorrow than kind of a thing. And it's only when things get to boiling point or his son is in danger, right? Remember, even at that point, it's the son who's in danger, and that's when the interval block happens. Even the final point, it's the son who kind of is kidnapped and gets in danger, kind of a thing. You may or may not agree with the way that was brought about, that contrivance was brought about, but it's again about the family. Here it's about the community, which is why even the last scene is not about Dhanush saying goodbye to his wife and child and saying, Nalla Padi, people cannot take education away from you. It's about the community inviting Dhanush to dance in the midst of them. So that way, the hero's journey thing is the same in both films, but I don't see them as exactly being the same movie. Otherwise, you could say practically every masala film where this transformation happens is the same kind of story. Vinay N608 asks a long question about, he appreciates the symbolism of Karnan, but he says, by looking at the response, do you think there would be a post-Karnan movement where stars are ready to try out something different which adds up to more than cinema? That's a tough question because it's a right now, especially, I'm just very, very happy that I'm recording this on a Tuesday. And the reports that I've heard is that Karnan has had a spectacular opening. At least three people that I've spoken to have told me like it's made incredible amounts of money. And I'm glad that a movie like this is able to do that. I also think that we have evolved slowly, slowly, slowly as an audience, right? It's like when you slowly, at first you have Balu Mahendra making a kind of film. Then you have it's so I think what we are today is basically a movie movement that is not actually Balu Mahendra's aesthetic at all, but it could be called the movement by the children of Balu Mahendra. Because whether you take Vetrimaran or Ram or anybody of those people, right, they've all kind of nurtured this talent. I mean, Mari Selvaraj openly acknowledges his debt to Ram. I think these children of Balu Mahendra have kind of created this parallel mainstream cinema where it is possible to make an Ardakalam, where it is possible to make a Pariyar Impermal, where it is possible. Of course, Ranjit produced Pariyar Impermal, but what I'm trying to tell you is that it's really like if you look at mentors and what they've affected on society, I think Balu Mahendra is really more than his own films. I think because he never really got into this zone at all, but all the people that he mentored have mostly gone on to make like films that at various points have affected society like this. Whether it's a movement, I don't know, because films are always one of things. It's easier to look back after 20 years and say, yes, that was indeed a movement and not just like 2 or 3 films coming out. Right now, it's very difficult to say. But if it is indeed a movement, it'd be great, because if heroes can lend their star power to these movies, even if it means that these movies will have to be genericized a bit into heroes' journey movies, I think it would be a great thing. I think we've had enough of heroes fighting villains and romancing the heroines, though. Though, what do you say when we are at this moment post-pandemic, when the biggest 2 hits after Master are Sultan, which is a kind of a really generic hero action romance movie, and Karnan, which is this very different kind of. So which is going to be the one that people take forward, embrace on a more regular basis? I hope it's the latter, but but you can never say, because see, it all depends. It's a business. It's an expensive business. So at the end of the day, stars also have to do have to do their own films to satisfy their core sets of fans who may or may not have the patience to watch a Karnan, because the when I say big dramatic moments, I'm talking about storytelling. But when you look at action wise, there aren't that many big dramatic moments. So there are also those kinds of fans. So it's a calculation, and my thing is, even if an actor says one for you, one for me, the way Kamal did in the 90s, that's a good calculation. I'm willing to live with it. I mean, I'll make a silly comedy, and then I'll make a Mahanadi, and then I'll make a silly comedy, and then I'll make something else. That's a good a way to lead an actor's life, I feel. So fingers crossed, and thank you so much for all these questions. Again, as Ronak said at the beginning, we will be announcing the winners of this episode's AskBR. These people will win t-shirts and other goodies from Fully Filmy, and we will soon put them up, their names up, on our social media handle. So thank you, and keep watching Film Companion South.